Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Narrative Wargamer Podcast. I am Tony Rhodes, and tonight I'm joined once again by Mr. Dan Wellington.
Hello.
And for the first time in a while, Chris Wildman.
What up, dogs?
Yeah, it's good to have you back on, Chris.
It's been a wee while, mate. Stuff's happened, things have changed, times have moved on. Mortality rains down upon us. But every day's still a good day. Toy Soldiers are still king. And I'm glad to be back on chatting Toy Soldiers.
Yeah, and, this is now... That's our second episode since we've restarted things up again this year, and we thought we had a whole bunch of fun new things to talk about last episode, which is why, we got back on the mic, as it were, but it turns out there's even more fun stuff to talk about this week as well, so we're going to get into that in a bit later, but first of all, we're going to have a little catch-up as to what we've all been up to in the hobby, personally, recently, so I know, Dan, obviously, you were on the last episode, which means it hasn't been a year plus since you were on, so
no.
Would you like to start by telling us all a little bit about what you've been up to in the hobby recently?
Sure, yeah. I've been playing some stuff. I've been playing Blood Bowl. I like a bit of Blood Bowl. Just started a new league at the friendly local gaming store, Grim Dice in Grimsby. I'm playing Norse. I won my first game. That was good. And I've got a game tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. Also, relevant to the discussion from the previous episode, Grim Dice are running a league for 40k shortly that is using the tactical reserves rules from the Crusade pack. So it will be a 2,500 point army split into 1,000 points and 3 500 point waves. We speculated that it would be quite fun for sort of outside of Crusade play, so I will be finding that out shortly.
Excellent. What are you thinking of taking for that?
I've written a Tyrannid Vanguard Onslaught list, which is quite fun because there's lots of infiltrating stuff that can start on the board and then deep striking stuff that can come in the second and third wave, which is quite cool. But they did delay the start of the league just a little bit, so that the Death Guard Codex will be in existence by then. So I might be persuaded to change.
Yeah. So that is the other thing about tonight is obviously two of the main things we're going to talk about a little bit is all of the hype now for the World Eaters and Death Guard releases. So at time of recording, we've just sort of hit that weekend where the content creators are now starting to put stuff out about it and be able to talk about it, and a couple of battle reports and so on online. So we don't have codexes in hand, but obviously there's lots of information to discuss. And between us, Dan is very much our resident Death Guard player on the podcast, and Chris is actually one of our resident World Eaters players. So it's
he is.
So it's a good opportunity to get you both on and talk about them in a bit. So yeah, you're thinking perhaps Death Guard might be coming to the local event using the fancy tactical reserves. I take it you have 2,500 points of Death Guard with or without a Mortarian filling spots.
I mean, it actually depends on how the points look once the updated points come out. I think I've got around about 2,500 at the moment, but I think everything will probably go up. So I imagine I'm safe on that regard.
Cool. But yeah, so looking forward to hearing, feedback about that and how it actually plays. Because I honestly thought it was one of the most fascinating sort of alternate modes of gameplay that I've seen them come up with in the last decade, really. So I am curious to see how it actually plays.
Yeah, same.
As for myself, I've been working on putting together a few different things for my demon army. I've got a work in progress painting of the Changeling, which has been quite a bit of fun actually. So one thing I've been doing with my demon army as a whole is putting everything on themed lava bases. but the like color of the lava, it sort of like matches and corresponds to a thematic theming with the individual gods. So obviously, Khorne is on like fiery lava, orangey red bases. It was like traditional lava.
Your traditional lava.
Traditional lava with plenty of skulls thrown on there. Whereas my Nurgle stuff has this more sort of like yellow-green sort of like lava, because it's basically just sculpted in the same way but painted in this obviously unusual, otherworldly, demonic colour. And then I include lots of like plant life on the bases as well, because I lean into the Garden of Nurgle aspect. The Changeling is the first Zinch model I've actually had the opportunity to paint up now for the army since sort of committing to that theming.
Okay.
Which meant I actually got to experiment with blue lava.
Blue lava. Blue raspberry flavoured.
Yeah, for those who can potentially see him, his interesting little kit. Blue lava, pink and green turquoisey flames. Still work in progress at this point, but I'm quite pleased with it really, because he's an interesting model because his sculpt is actually, he's like levitating on this pillar of flame. So it was an opportunity to do the lava base without having to do an actual like piece of rock in it, for the model to stand on. So it's just a pure blue flame base, which actually looks really cool, and I think is going to sort of make him stand out amongst the army. But I'm also pleased with how it looks overall, because I think it was like add more Zinch units. In fact, I could really like the look of a whole army done like that. So the whole army is just on like blue lava. So yeah, he's a lot of fun. He'll be done shortly. And then the other thing I'm doing right now is working on the Great Unclean One, my second of the what we would call new/current generation Greater Demons. I've had a Bloodthirster for years, but never got around to getting the Great Unclean One until now. So yeah, he's a fun kit to put together. And me being me, of course, I've decided to go for all the sometimes literal bells and whistles in the case of Nurgle. So I've added the various little pet Nurglings to him. One carrying like the sensor, one sat on his shoulder, one being squished right under his belly. And of course, I'm now adorning him with extra plant life so that he matches, as I say, my whole Garden of Nurgle aesthetic. So he's actually going to have little bits of leaves and plant life and stuff sort of emerging from some of his more open and gaping wounds across his body. So he's going to have a whole sort of like fungal sort of vibe to him, which I think will be really nice to sort of make him a centerpiece for the army. But yeah, looking forward to getting him on the table now, especially since the recent data slate update for him, because +1 toughness aura for Nurgle demons is really interesting. I mean, pushing Plague Bearers to toughness 6. I
was going to say, are they already toughness 5 and now they're toughness 6?
Yeah,
it's quite a big deal.
Yeah, it is quite a big deal, but also especially since that is one of the upcoming changes to Death Guard, as it seems that the rank and file Plague Bearers have also now moved to the territory of toughness 6, which is amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, that and the fact that he pushes himself to toughness 13 is actually quite fun.
The idea of anything strength 12 needing a 5+ to wound is...
Yeah, a las cannon needing a 5 to wound a Great Flame one's a little bit squiffy.
Yeah, it's really fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that with him. I mean, the thing that I'm really sort of planning to work in with him is the Horticulate Slimex and the Beasts of Nurgle, because they're naturally toughness 9 as a unit, so if they're within his aura range, I basically have them as like my frontline first wave like attackers or anvil sort of unit, because they're toughness 10 as a unit, which is hilarious. Is basically like having a unit of like armigers or something almost at that point. And yeah, I mean, that's just personal project stuff. For those who those who aren't aware, I've recently started also taking on more commission work, specifically through helping out old Chris here, because actually I've become a active member of Team Unrelenting recently.
He is. Absolutely. Happy to have him on board. The bits you finished off last week landed with me on Friday. I've gone over them today and they're great, and they're going to be with the client on Sunday, and then he's got some more stuff coming your way as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to posting those on my Instagram, because I was able to do some really fun stuff with like my reels and photos and stuff for them, because it was actually...
The scenic shots you did of the Wild West stuff, excellent. Really, really nice. Like War Games Illustrated levels of scenes. We absolutely love it.
Yeah, so what was that game system called? Was it like
Wild
Dead
West
Man's
Exodus?
Hand?
No, Dead Man's Hand. Dead Man's Hand, that was it.
That was it, yeah. So basically some cowboys. Yeah. Cowboys and lawmen, and they were really fun to do. But yeah, I've painted a few bolt action things for you recently as well. And I also got to do my first ever proper set of Age of Sigmar models, because I painted up the Soulblight Grade Lord's Spearhead box set.
You did, and again they had people in the shop. They had people in the shop rammed with folks stopping and looking at them, which is lovely.
It's always good to hear that, not only does the client obviously really enjoy the final product, but also if passers-by are also passing comment as well, it's always a good sign.
Exactly.
So yeah, plenty of fun stuff on the way that I'm working on for you as well. So yeah, again, if you follow my if you follow my socials at Narrative Wargamer, or equally if you follow Chris's various Unrelenting accounts, there's your own, there's like your professional one, and there's the other team members as well.
There's 9 of us now, so 9 lots of artists all churning out great stuff. It's hobby every day. That's the big ambition. Hobby every day, and that's what we're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great fun, and so you can see all that following us over on Instagram. There'll be links in the description below if you want to go check that out. So yeah, that's me. Chris, what about yourself? Because as I say, you've been very busy recently.
Yes, I have been painting. The easy answer is yes. So this year, I'm not going to tell you everything about this year. It's been so much stuff. The latest big projects I've really enjoyed working on. I did the Space Marine Octavius Combat Patrol, the one from the Starbox, the Terminator Captain, Librarian, Terminators, and Infernus Marines. I decided to paint those up as Space Wolves. I got some really nice 3D printed third-party bits just to spice them up and make them look a bit more wolfy. Super happy with those. Again, they're on the socials if anyone wants to see those. And I took those to an event, which I'll double back on later. I've also been painting some Blood Bowl. I'm also in a Blood Bowl league with some friends. We're 2 games in. I am 1 loss, 1 win. And then I'm against my brother tomorrow, so it's family honour on the line. And I'm 4-star player points off my big guy getting blocked, so it's a big deal for anyone who plays Blood Bowl that knows how important that is. A big monster with block is a nightmare for everybody.
Nice.
Yeah, which variety of big guy is that again, sorry?
It's the Bloodspawn for the Khorne Blood Bowl team.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not actually overly familiar with that one, but essentially it's...
He's brilliant when he hits. When you activate him, you need to roll a dice. Anything but a 1, he's okay, he's an angry monster. If you roll a 1, he's basically a pacifist for a turn, going...
Right, yeah, so he's got Bonehead, because that's usually the main thing that distinguishes him from
Essentially. He doesn't lose his tag zone, but it does mean he finishes his activation. But when he hits, he smacks. If I can get him blocked, happy days. I've also been doing a lot of Necromunda. Me and my twin over the Easter holiday painted a Necromunda table. 4x4 tiles and 2 Dark Uprising boxes worth of scenery. We got that done in about just over 6 hours. Looks great, really happy with that. We want to use it for Necromunda, boarding actions, conventional 40k, Zone Mortalis and Horus Heresy, everything. It's just another...
One of these days, I expect you and your twin to show up at SumpCon dressed in like Delac cosplay, because I just feel like it would be so appropriate and confusing for everyone.
We'll come back to me and my brother going to events in a minute, because something rather funny happened at the Combat Patrol event I ran. But I'm actually, the table we've done, I'm donating it to SumpCon for their event in May, because I said if they want to use it, I'm sure they'd appreciate it, and it's promotion at the end of the day. And Steve, being the wonderful chap he is, says it's fine, so If you're at SumCon, check it out. If you don't know what SumCon is, Google it. It's fantastic. Steve and the Some City guys are brilliant. Old World. I'm currently on an Old World kick. I've got some really nice old school. I'll see if the camera will pick them up. Old school, really early GW inspired orcs that I printed at home. So I'm going to get a 500 point army sorted of those for a campaign running in May. Just boys, no goblins, just orc infantry as far as the eye can see. I'm in a 40k league in Belper, a competitive one, Tony. Because I say I'll do them and I never do because I'm crap at the game. And so far, the testament holds up. But it is a good time. The guys there are great. It's really fun to be in the store. And I'm excited to see what the new World Eater book brings for that. And then I've got a full Grim in front of me that needs painting. I've got a Dreadnought that needs the base finishing. I've got some historical, never mind the Bill Hook stuff that needs painting for a client. But basically, yes, is what I've been painting, Tony.
Yeah, like, it sounds like you are incredibly.
What haven't you been painting?
Yeah.
What haven't I been painting? The decorating in the house that desperately needs doing, but that's done.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more then about this combat patrol event that you were running?
Yes, mate, absolutely. So I ran a combat patrol event in January at Tabletop Events in Belper, which is the local store I support as much as I can. And it was just bring a combat patrol, we'll play some of the missions from the rulebook. It's designed to be accessible for people who maybe don't play a lot of 40k, haven't played 40k, just come and give it a go in a new environment, meet some people, have a good time. And we had 11 people turn up to that one, 9 of which had never been to an event before, and 7 of which hadn't played 40k properly before, which was unbelievable. If you want to get people into 40k or try 40k, that's a surefire way to do it, and it's dead easy to run, and the store was great for it. The one I ran a couple of weekends back was a little bit more narrative-esque. There was a map I 3D printed detailing the sector of Bilpa 19, which is where the setting was. There was key locales and tiles which reflected things like a rail yard, a reactor plant, a shrine, the Hive City, various other places, a landing pad, and I incorporated those missions to be narrative friendly. I generated the missions from some of the old open war cards from previous editions of 40k and just basically created the missions to play, and then set special rules for each tile that the people were fighting on. So for instance, if you're fighting on the rail yard, if you're within 3 inches of a track, roll a dice at the end of the turn. If you roll anything lower than a 3, a train comes and knocks D3 wounds off you and starts one of you guys. Likewise, there was the shrine map where, depending on the factions that were playing it, Imperium get a bonus to their Feel No Pain or their invulns around it. Chaos have to do an action to desecrate it. Xenos have to do an action to destroy it, and any mission they destroy it, it's gone for the rest of the event. So there's these real tangible impacts and consequences to the missions I wanted people to have, while also ensuring the game's accessible, but also really easy for people to learn who are new to the game or don't play very much, which is why Combat Patrol's so great. It was an amazing day. We had 11 people turn up. I was player number 12, and it was fantastic, and everyone had a great time. There was loads of Team Unrelenting in there, and loads of people again who hadn't been to a 40k event before, and it took a little bit of planning in terms of getting the missions written up. I wanted a physical event pack, printing the map and painting it, but those bits of effort were worth it because it really embodied to me what I think 40k's not getting seen a lot of these days, which is the narrative elements, the storytelling, things like maps. I think a map for any event is fantastic. It just really solidifies what you're doing there instead of, oh, I'm going to play 3 games and roll some dice, which is why we're there. But why are we rolling those dice? What bit of this world are we indebted to? What bit do we want to conquer? What bit do we love? What bit do we want to destroy? And it just really makes for a great day, and it stops any... Well, it doesn't stop, but it kind of limits the spirit of the event being all about winning your games and more about what you want to do at the event. That was a lot of waffle, Tony, I apologise. But no, it was a great time. I'm eager to do more. I'm in talks with other hobby stores in the Midlands to do some events in the very near future. But yeah, no, the event was fantastic, and again, the narrative was that the Imperium started on the back foot. They fought as hard as they could. Chaos got a massive lead early game, but at the end of the day, it was a close-fought victory to the Xenos. Bilpa 19 has now been desecrated and eaten and destroyed, and now we're going to think about the next event and maybe move the narrative to orbit. I really want to do a boarding actions event, all narrative, and do a map entirely on like a Space Orc-esque kind of split of the different sectors of this Space Orc or this cruiser that everyone's fighting on. and it just gets the creative juices flowing. And any game I play where I go away and think I'm really excited to do more of this is a winner in my eyes.
Here's a funny idea that's just jumped into my mind as you've been mentioning it. If you wanted to do something like a map-based system for a boarding actions campaign, would it be quite fun to, if you can get a hold of a copy of the Space Hulk board game, and use the tiles from that to basically create what you'd call like a macro scale map?
Yes, and zoom out, as it were. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Each section of the Space Hulk tiles would in fact represent one game, like one battle, one zone section of the ship.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and I think I've still got the Betrayal at Calth tiles as well from the box game that came out, and that was set at Underground and Calth, so similar premise with a slightly different twist. But no, that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's great to hear that you're got that sort of stuff up and running. I'm hopefully in talks to sort of try and get something running up here in Aberdeen sometime, perhaps towards the back end of 2025. I've got a couple like venues and local event organisers that I'm sort of working with to try and get involved with getting something up and running again. I don't quite know if it'll be Crucible of War or not, or some new iteration of something, but definitely something. So I'm going to keep people posted on updates as and when I have it. But I would certainly love to be up and running with stuff again, even though it might be a bit of a trek for some of the previous attendees.
Mate, if I can make it, I'd love to. My new wife, my new lovely lady wife is from Aberdeenshire, and I don't know how well it would go as babe. Should we go see family back home? Yeah, I'm gonna disappear for a day.
Hey, you could make it a business trip. Just say you've got a 1-to-1 that you need to do with a staff member.
I do, absolutely, and she'll be there like, are you pulling my plonker, you absolute little gobby? She's a woman and she knows. But yeah, obviously if I can attend any events, mate, I would absolutely love to. And likewise, you obviously have open invitation. I appreciate it's a long way down here and you've got family commitments, but there's always a spot, you just need to ask.
Excellent. And yeah, I would say for all news related to any events that me, Chris, or in fact any other members of the podcast or affiliates or people that we work with, or even just listeners, are involved in, let me know, and we'll obviously let the wider community know as well, because we do want to promote these things and get people's awareness of what other options are out there to play as well. And turns out there are narrative combat patrol events.
Absolutely, there are, and there's going to be more. Before we pass on to the next bit, I will mention I'm an identical twin for people who don't know. Andy, who's been to a few of my events, absolutely lovely dude. If I could have 10 of him at every event, it would be an incredible event. He did not know I had an identical twin, walked into the venue while I was parking my car, approached my twin brother, pinched his bottom and said, "Hello, gorgeous, how are you?" To which my twin brother turned around and went, "Hello." At which point Andy was like, "Why is he being weird?" I then walked in and he turned around and I think the world fell out of his butthole.
Brilliant.
So the funny thing about that story to me is that your brother doesn't sound overly fazed by that sort of thing happening, so he's used to, on some level, these sort of things happening to him, people mistaking him for you. Cool. So while that's everything we've been up to, it's now time for thinking about everything that we're going to be getting up to soon in the future, namely new releases. So, Dan, you have some thoughts and excitement relating to the new upcoming Death Guard.
Yes. Well, not just Death Guard. I guess the Cult Legion Codexes as a whole, but specifically Death Guard for me because that's the army that I have. And I'm very excited to get them on the table again and use all the cool, fun new rules they've got that we've been seeing in previews and in the various content creator YouTube videos and the like. But yeah, sort of the thing that really grabbed me about all the stuff we're seeing for Death Guard and World Eaters, and I guess from the Emperor's Children not too long ago, although to a slightly lesser extent, is that they're kind of doing a lot to give the armies their own identity outside of just the specific army units. So like, the Hellbrutes and Defilers and Predators and stuff have got their own unique rules, more or less. It's kind of a slightly different approach to how Games Workshop have traditionally done it, where all of the non-unique units are all as similar as possible. So it's quite a sort of an interesting new take on it.
Yeah, instead of just Mark of X, it's more unique.
Yeah, like for instance, the Death Guard Defiler has a lethal battle cannon, I believe. And I think the Khorne one gets to like
all battle cannon. Yeah, as you would hope all battle cannons.
I mean, I guess yes.
I was going to say, surely all battle cannons, by their very nature, are lethal. Not very good if they're not.
Yes, it's capital L lethal.
Excellent. Thank you for clarifying.
Could you imagine if Emperor's Children had got a precision battle cannon?
Excellent.
Bye, Sarge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. How for the longest time, decades even, like the identity of the World Eaters would have been Khorne Berserkers. That was it. Like the unit Khorne Berserkers was the only thing that would really define a Chaos Space Marine force as being a World Eaters force. And then similarly, Noise Marines, Rubrics, and Plague Marines, and so on. And then they sort of
Death Guard had a full range, so they got slightly more than the others, but they were still essentially like Space Marines but tougher, right? That's the gist of it.
Yeah, I was going to say they sort of started breaking the mold with the Death Guard in the 8th edition release, where they sort of got their first big pre-Mortarian. That's it, Dark Imperium makeover, where the addition of things like the Plagueburst Crawler, the Fetid Blood Drones, even like the Poxwalkers to an extent, was kind of like, here's chaos, but not chaos, it's Nurgle. It's the Death Guard, sort of thing. Yeah. And then Thousand Sons sort of had that a little bit, in the sense that their Codex included like Magnus and so on. That sort of predated the Death Guard, but that was still very much mostly just Chaos Space Marines with rubrics. It wasn't hugely divergent. And then they kind of tried to shoehorn in some divergency when they refreshed it post Death Guard by adding things like all the Zangors from AOS and the like Mutilith Beast and so on. But that, to me, that always felt like we're adding these because we already have them. Like, yeah, sure, fine, we've sculpted some chainsaws and bolt pistols, for them. But it was kind of like, we're just trying to now give Thousand Sons this divergence that matches the Death Guard. But actually, it was kind of, in a way, a shorthand fix, like a stopgap. Whereas now, with what we're seeing with the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters more recently, with things like 8-bound and so on, we've now got things like the what they call the Flawless Blades, the different takes on the Legionary squads, so like the Infractors and the Tormentors, I think they're called. Like Emperor's Children are, now getting their own identity outside of just being pink and purple, Chaos Space Marines, and like their Rhinos have, like you mentioned, have a unique role for them, as opposed to what it is for the standard Chaos Legions. And I'm assuming, I don't know at this point, but I'm assuming perhaps Death Guard Rhino and the World Eaters Rhino will have their own different role for them.
It's quite exciting, really. It's not just get a wound back at the start of the command phase, right? It's something different now for a Rhino, which is, the most basic unit in the book, really. I believe the Death Guard one lets you re-roll wounds in shooting on the unit that disembarked if you shoot it with the Rhino first. Nice. The thing that I think the Wave Serpent does that or something. Tag it with the Rhino, then the squad that got out gets to reroll wounds. I can't remember what the World Eater one does, but it does something totally different, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I was surprised when Emperor's Children did not seemingly include the Hellbrute in the Codex. Because while I think it was very optimistic to hope for a Sonic Dreadnought, I would have still expected the Hellbrute to exist and then have some kind of, unique rule to it, because in 10th edition, certainly that did seem to be a trend where even with the indexes, the Hellbrutes all had slightly different mechanical rules for each of the dedicated legions.
That was kind of the blueprint for what they're doing now with the full book, in a way.
Yeah.
But obviously the Emperor's Children lost it, so bad luck, guys.
Yeah. And I have to say, I genuinely don't know if the Hellbrutes are still in there for the World Eaters and Death Guard, but I haven't seen anyone online complaining about their loss, so I assume they are.
They are, according to the leaks from the content creators. I was worried because I run a Hellbrute and I run a Predator Annihilator, and I don't want to lose either of those because I'm throwing my toys at the pram. But they are both in there, and the World Eater Hellbrute is still ridiculous. But I'll cover that if we talk about World Eaters in a moment.
I did hear anecdotal evidence of a fight between a World Eaters Dreadnought and a Blood Angels Death Company Brutalis, where basically they both have the rule where when they get hit, they then fight an additional time, which meant that when the two of them contact, all they do is they just fight to the death until one of them dies.
My Hellbrute has killed more in my opponent's turns than any of my turns put together.
Brilliant. Shall we just talk about a couple of key units from the books and interesting things that we've noted from what we've been hearing?
I mean, one of the things I wanted to mention, because I thought it was really clever and interesting, was there's one of the, it's specifically about the army rules relating to the Death Guard and the Contagions, and then specifically one of the detachments they previewed on Warcom I thought was really interesting. So obviously, the core army rule is this Contagion range effect. How a growing aura from all the Death Guard units over the game, which result in a -1 toughness debuff for enemy units if they're close enough. And then previously, the sort of updated version of that included picking a particular disabilitating effect in addition, so it'd be -1 to hit or armor save, or I think it's movement and OC now.
That's the other one. Movement, leadership, OC.
Yeah. Which is a secondary layer to that Contagion. And that, I believe, that's becoming the main core rule, regardless of detachment. You still get the extra, pox effect on top of the minus toughness of all the detachments. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, that was the Plague Company edition rule. Now it's for all the factions.
Whereas essentially the core detachment for Death Guard now is the sticky objectives effect for basically all their units.
Yep.
And the fact that if you do sticky an objective, the objective then gains a Contagion aura as well. Yeah. But the one that I thought was interesting was I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically a Blight Bombardment detachment, where basically the detachment rule in one of these variants is you can designate a number of enemy unit. I think it's 2 units in a Strike Force game. In each of either your command phases or your opponent's command phase, I can't remember which. Basically, you point to those units and say they are afflicted, so they count as being under the effects of the Contagion, whether they're in range of something or not. Which I believe is also what the Hellbrute used to do for the Death Guard, and I don't know if it still does the same thing.
It is what the Hellbrute used to do, and it's now what the Plague Marines do. The regular Plague Marine, the basic Plague Marine datasheet was much maligned because its special rule in the index was basically it doesn't have one. It was +1 leadership when they're on an objective, which is great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, from competitive standpoint, it basically didn't happen. It didn't exist, and from a narrative standpoint, it basically didn't exist. So the new one is now that they have the thing that Hellbrute has in the index, which is that they can tag something they shot at to get the affliction on them. So they can shoot a unit 24 inches out with their bolters or plasma guns or whatever and force that unit to become afflicted. So then the next unit can shoot them with -1 toughness. And there's a lot of units, I believe, that interact with the affliction as well, so that they get additional special rules if they are targeting afflicted units. So there's a whole sort of kind of almost like the time marker-like system where you can sort of prep which unit attacks first, and then the next unit gets more bonuses, making it a lot more sort of interesting in how you play the game, not just sort of, you know, left from right down the line. This unit shoots, then this unit shoots. You've got to work it out a bit more cleverly, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's perhaps a little easier to parse than the marker system that the Tau have, because basically all it is I do something, I either declare a thing or make an attack or use a stratagem or whatever. I do a thing, and now a target enemy unit now becomes afflicted. So it's then like just basically like a status effect. So that I feel is actually quite nice mechanically to just track. You just get some tokens, you know. I imagine it'd be a fun opportunity to just like make some little custom tokens for like afflicted status.
You just cough on that unit.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's a really interesting new layer to like the contagion effects. I'm assuming, because again, I haven't seen his data sheet, so I don't know anything about it, but I assume Mortarion probably has something to do with afflicted units or making people be afflicted, various things.
I don't think he has much interaction with it, to be honest. But he has some very nice rules from what I've seen. What people have been saying. He's got the short version is his pick one of three things is a reactive thing rather than an aura, so he can have a himself or a unit close to him can either move when the opponent moves close to them, shoot when they get shot, or fight on death, which is great. And his other new thing is that he has basically an aura of essentially 2+ to do D3 mortal wounds at the end of the movement phase. So he just runs around making everyone sick.
Yeah. Yes, he literally just runs around coughing on people.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get some use out of him again.
Yeah. I think that just actually sort of really stepping up the game on the whole contagion mechanic, the Death Guard, is a really, you know, significant change. I think it's going to be a level of proactiveness that the Death Guard were missing, rather than just being, we're slow and tough. Yeah, this is actually kind of like, no, we now make tactical decisions. Like we're controlling the flow of the game and like the board state, because we're dictating who, what, and where is afflicted, and by what. You know.
It feels like a mechanic that they've leaned heavily into to kind of define the army a lot more than it did before.
And I think it's especially interesting how, obviously, we'll talk about World Eaters some more shortly as well, but both of these new codexes now included attachments to specifically include their gods, demons, in like their mortals and demon mixed attachment. And I like the benefit being really straightforward that if Nurgle demon units are within a certain range, I think it's 7 inches, of a Death Guard unit, then the Nurgle demons also gain the contagion aura, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Which is just a really nice idea, and I think plays really well. And I can imagine a bunch of like the demon units that you have access to, because again, it's a limited range, but it's actually more expansive than I thought it was, because it's basically everything outside of like the non-greater demon characters, the soul grinder, and the Demon Princes. I think are about the only things you can't really take. You can take almost everything else, Nurgle demon-wise.
Yeah, all the standard stuff.
Sense. Yeah, it's like it's your Plague Bearers, it's your Beasts of Nurgle, it's your Blight Drones, or Plague Drones even. And giving them the effects that they have, in addition to the contagion effect, is going to be pretty cool. I mean, the Grand Cleon himself, he has an ability at the end of the movement phase. You just pick an enemy unit within 12 inches, or 18 inches, or whatever the range is, and that unit is -1 toughness. So actually, if you do that in combination with contagions, you can force an enemy unit to be at -2 toughness.
That's quite good.
Which is quite interesting when suddenly that makes Custodes toughness 3 Custodes.
With
Like,
-1
please.
armor save as well.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but I need to tell you about the Narrative Wargamer Patreon. Did you know, as one of our patrons, you can get access to exclusive benefits such as joining our community Discord, behind-the-scenes posts, early access to a range of videos, and bonus content, such as us playing a D&D style 40k one-shot roleplay game, and a brand new narrative play mission available every month to download and try yourself in your own games of Warhammer 40,000 on the tabletop. These monthly missions have been put together by myself, offering a fun and exciting alternative to the standard matched play missions, and each one comes with its own optional set of environment rules for an added narrative twist. Our patrons are super important to us, and without them, we wouldn't be able to produce these videos or the podcast. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of our existing patrons, and if you want to help support the channel yourself, you can sign up over at patreon.com/Narrative Wargamer, or follow the link in the description below.
Cool. So yeah, obviously Death Guard are just one half of the up-and-coming Chaos releases. So, Chris, you're our resident World Eaters player. How are you feeling about the upcoming Codex and new releases and all the latest new things for World Eaters?
The resident World Eater enjoyer, that's me. I am by nature excited because World Eaters have only been in the game as their own faction now for 2 years? I think Angron came out this time 2 years ago.
Sounds about right.
You could probably count the calendar dates based on the number of Angrons you've painted. It's like, oh yeah, it's my every quarterly Angron that I paint.
Yeah, exactly. I've got my own Angron KPIs to track. So I'm excited for the book. I'm annoyed as a World Eater fan because I feel like the Death Guard have got far cooler stuff coming than the World Eaters got. I like their combat patrol. It looks like the start of an army. I like their battle force. It looks like an army in the making. World Eaters get Slaughterbound, 8-bound, and Jackal spam, and Jackals, Berserkers, and a Demon Prince, and it just feels a bit, I'd have liked an on-foot Lord, and I don't know. I guess I'm just stuck in my ways of an army box should start with a hero, some troops, a big thing, and something special.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
Have you been looking at picking up the new kill team with the sort of like new Jackal?
The Goremongers, I've got those. They're in the pile. They're in the pile to be done. I love those. I think they're cool. I think any mortal that leans into wanting to being a bloodletter by cutting their legs off is like, yeah, cool man. I am sold. Crack on. But yeah, I think we got them as a new unit, and we got the Slaughterbound as a new unit, and they're fine. They're very copy-paste of stuff we've already got. I'd have liked an unnamed Terminator Lord, and some characters, and some Juggernauts. But as a World Eater player, we don't complain, we just get on with it and roll those 6s. Also, the Lord of Poxers, the Death God dude, he's one of my favourite models come out this year. He's absolutely wicked. I think just as a generic Death God character, he's great. But yeah, for World Eaters, I am excited to play more of them because I'm playing them in my league, and they've said with the book coming out, obviously the book ticks over the index if you want to start using that, so I can start jiggery-pokery. I moan about the Battle Force, but of course I pre-ordered it because I want some Slaughterbound, and I want the 8-bound because I've only got 3 Exalted 8-bound, and apparently 3 lots of 3 is the way to do it. And in terms of the mechanics, the book looks fun. It looks very similar to the index that we're playing. Any World Eater fan who's been online in the past couple of weeks has probably seen all the naysayers and the criers and the Angron's unplayable and this army sucks, I'm selling it and I'm going to play Space Wolves. And it's like, just have a drink, guys. Just chill out. Read a book and look at the... I've been in so many World Eater chats where people are lamenting and wailing, and all I've said is, yeah, but the models are cool though, aren't they? Yeah. And got no response, because at the end of the day, guys, it's just toy soldiers. But yeah, I'm eager to see the points. I'm eager to see what my 2,000 point list looks like now compared to what it's going to look like. And I'm excited to paint more red and gold trim because I'm a psychopath. And the things I'm most excited about are the detachments, because they all sound fun. I like the Demonkin detachment. I really like the Armoured Assault detachment with Berserkers jumping out of Rhinos and charging. I think that sounds dead fun. But that said, I do like my Berserker Warband. I do like an infantry heavy World Eater army. Things not disappointed, but curious over are the changes to the what's the official name of it? Blessings of Khorne. Changes to that table. Obviously, if you played World Eaters in the past year, you've ran the Berserker Warband detachment, you roll your 8 blood dice, and you go for lethal hits and sustained hits pretty much every time. The first turn, you'll do +2 movement and feel no pain, just to get at the board and get those objectives and keep you guys alive for a bit longer. Turn 2 to the end of the game, lethal hits, sustained hits, unless you can bring Angron back on the 666, in which case you obviously do that, obviously. That's now changed. They've made it so it's a lot less, and again, I hate the term auto-take, but the auto-selection of lethal and sustained, you can still take those. You've got the added extra of being able to do devastating wounds to infantry units, which is quite specific, but again, decapitating strikes against infantry makes sense. Angron. Was Angron overpowered in the index because you could bring him back at 4 wounds as many times as you wanted? Just don't kill him, guys. Just leave him on 2 wounds running around the board.
Can I say, having played the last game of 40k I played was against World Eaters, yes. It was my answer.
Listen, I've run him to a few events.
666.
I've run him to a few events now, and the last game I played with him, and my opponent said, "You're not going to roll a 666, so it's not a problem." I then went on to spawn Angron in the corner of the table, charge an objective, and I think I lost that game by 8 points, but still it was great. Now he comes back with 8 wounds and goes into Deep Strike. Nowhere near as good.
Yeah.
Are his points going to drop by a lot? Maybe. Do they need to? I don't really mind. I'm still going to run him in my list because I think he's cool. All in all, we didn't lose anything. I was really worried about getting the Emperor's Children treatment. They don't get Hell Brutes, they don't get Predators, they get limited access to a lot of generic Chaos stuff. I think Chaos Cult Book should have access to the majority of generic Chaos Space Marine units. A, because it makes sense, and B, from a modelling perspective, I'd love to have some Legionnaires in red and brass, and just as standard Chaos Space Marines. But evidently, it's not meant to be. But alongside that, I am happy and I'm excited, and I'm really eager. I'm going to try and talk Kenny into doing some Crusade stuff on our Necromunda board and do kind of like similar boarding action Crusade level stuff, maybe get inspired for the event, have some low level armies scrapping on this abandoned strike cruiser and forge a narrative, tell a story and have a good time. And I can't take Angron.
This is my combat patrol. It's Angron.
It's the boss. But I would love to play that. There's that mission, and I think, was it in the Angron book or one of the narrative books, where you're on a ship and Angron's on the outside. Yeah, and Angron's on the outside of the ship trying to batter his way in, and you've got to see if you guys get zapped down to space. I thought that was so metal. So I'd love to do something inspired by that.
Yeah, that one's brilliant. The way that one actually works is you've got your boarding actions table, and obviously it's made up of like Zone Mortalis style tiles, and a random game round, battle round. You split the table down the middle, and the 2 halves proceed to then move further apart. So like it leaves the stranded forces stuck in the 2 respective halves of the ship that they're stuck in. The theory being that Angron has just smashed through the ship, and he's actually like literally torn it in half, sort of thing. You know, in that section.
Kind of like Master Chief at the start of Halo 2, but with a lot less finesse. So yeah, obviously from narrative perspectives, I'm really excited about it. The Slaughterbound, I'm excited to read more about him as a character because I'd like a list with an unnamed low-level dude leading it, as nice as Khan and Lord Invocatus and Angron are. Crusade needs your unnamed mook who's fought his way up to the ranks, and this is his first day on the job. He's fresh out of the academy, he's got his cap and his badge, and is he going to get killed by his own boss tearing through his spaceship? We just got to wait and see.
Well, I mean, it's pretty traditional that Crusade rules include some ridiculous sort of like top-level weapon that you can eventually get access to. So if you've got a Slaughterbound wielding an axe that, you know, has a bloodthirster pop out of it, that could easily be a thing that happens.
Yep, absolutely. All in all, I rate my hype for this a solid 7.5 scores out of 8.
Out of 8, yep. I mean, I have to say, I had heard rumour that apparently the Lord of Skulls might actually be an interesting unit that might see play on the tabletop at some point.
Yes, because that's if you're in any of these World Eater competitive groups, and the second previews come out, and the lamenting and the crying of my list is useless, I'm not playing this game anymore. Games Workshop owe me money. You then give it 24 hours, and it's, wait guys, I've got something, and it's a list with a Lord of Skulls and 80 Jackals, all worshipping this giant monstrosity, getting all the buffs in the world. And it's like, guys, it's a cool idea, but it's a novelty, and it's just going to get nerfed. Just rein it in a little bit. Let everybody enjoy the game for a bit before you make stuff change.
It's the same in the Orc groups, where every time it's just like, wait guys, I think I can make the Stomper work.
Yep. Absolutely.
There'll be a distinct mid to bottom table sections of many an event coming up where we'll have Lords of Skulls crashing into Stompers, and they will be having the best time while they do it.
Which sounds great.
Excellent.
As a Warrior fan, as an Orc fan, absolutely. I do need to get a Lord of Skulls. I'm well overdue getting myself one. I have been good enough. It is my birthday this year, so I think I should treat myself.
Well, speaking of treating yourself, it's funny enough how today, as we were planning this recording, we've had some latest very, very interesting reveals and drops from Games Workshop, because they've shown us some more Space Wolves that are going to be coming in the near future. And I can only assume your inner wolf is now howling at the prospect of getting their hands on the new Logan Grimnar.
It's like they said, oh, that guy really likes the choppy guys in the red and the brass, let's do those. Oh wait, he also likes these blue-grey guys, let's do them as well. It's like, hey, cool guys, thanks. My MOT's due soon, I don't care about that. That's secondary to my hobby needs.
They were just like, Chris has asked for a Terminator character wielding a very fancy Chaos Axe. Cool, here you go, have Logan Grimnar. Have
Logan Grimnar without his sled. Cool, man, thanks guys, appreciate it. No, they all look fantastic. There's nothing about it I don't love. My concern is for Old Man Bjorn. I don't want him to get Legends. Do I want a Redemptor Bjorn more than anything in the world? Would I love to see Bjorn in a Redemptor Dreadnought? Narratively, while they do it, I don't think so. So I'm just going to have to manage my expectations about that. But the Wolf God Terminators, that's answered some of my concerns. I was worried about what was going to happen with those. But those and the Wolf Guard, the Head Hunters, the Blood Calls and the Grey Hunters, the stuff we've seen so far, amazing. I'm very, very hyped for that release. I will probably jump on that as my main 40k army for the rest of the year when they come out.
Entirely fair.
I also feel really, really sorry for the Blood Angels, because we had the Dark Angels come out. Oh yeah, they look really, really cool. The Space Wolves, oh my god, they look fantastic. I've not seen a negative comment about the Space Wolves online, which for A, it being Space Wolves, and B, being a Games Workshop release is unbelievable. I messaged Darren Latham saying that. Like, guys, this is a testament to the work you've done. I've seen zero complaints. Blood Angel players I feel a little bit sorry for.
Yeah, Sharpie was saying this last episode. He said, like, very excited as a Space Wolf player, but he feels sorry for Blood Angel players, or he feels like he'd be, a bit shortchanged right now if he was a son of Baal.
I've painted some of the Blood Angels, and they're nice, and they're fine, and they're definitely Blood Angels. But they're not as cool as my guys, but that's never the new case, is it? It's just one of them, isn't it? You cope with the cards you dealt with.
I think that says it all. They're fine.
Yeah, this is it. And again, the thing about the Space Wolves they showed off today is the paintwork. Now, obviously, all the stuff Games Workshop reveal in their previews is painted beautifully. The Age of Sigmar and the Heresy releases, and even some of the Old World releases, I feel have been beyond comparison against the 40k stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, it's incredible still, but the quality and the finish and the amount of finesse and the paintwork the Heavy Metal guys have done with some of those bits have been unreal. And the Space Wolf stuff shown off today has capped that for 40k. I hope they keep that momentum with the rest of the stuff they do, because it really is superb paintwork.
Yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, I think the effects they've painted on the Axe of Mordecai that like Logan's wielding just looks amazing.
Yeah, even his face and the shading and the dry cracked skin on his face. Like, we've had Marines with scars on shown for months and months and years on end, but this is a par above the rest. So yes, 10 out of 10 will woof again.
The thing that grabbed me about that is that they've painted his eyes in shadow, right? Which is not something they tend to do in their studio armies. It's usually, bright and show all the details, right? And it really sells the sort of aesthetic of the miniature, and I think the range, which is Space Wolves are cool again, guys. They're not just weird little toys with floaty chariots and riding wolves and stuff. It's the late 90s, early 2000s again. Space Wolves are cool.
Yeah, and a lot of people have said there's less of a cringy, wolfy element to them, or more of that kind of paganistic Viking aesthetic to it, which again, I'm not going to argue with. I think they look great. But yeah, bring them to my table immediately. If the combat patrol for Space Wolves is Grey Hunters, Blood Claws, a War Priest, and something else, I will be over the moon.
Yeah, and I think it's been really interesting actually seeing them do old aged Space Marines. Like, we just don't see that very often,
That's a result of the Canis Helix.
Yeah, like, especially since a lot of the, I suppose what you would call canonically old characters actually have always had either artwork or models where they're wearing helmets, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, famously Dante, is obviously like
Old
a
Man
very
Dante.
old Space Marine. But I don't think there's been any ever official artwork or depiction of him like not wearing the helmet, not wearing the death mask.
No, I think the closest we've got in terms of that is probably Calgar.
Yeah, because
he's slightly aged, but he's not an angry old man with a face like worn leather.
No, he like things like Calgar have got the sort of like older senior like army general, but not like retired ex-forces guy, who's like that old. He's still very much like active service, sort of senior military man. But actually seeing like obviously Logan, but also things like even just like New Najal and the generic Wolf Priest model they've previewed previously. Actually seeing old aged Space Marines, which still have all that sense of threat and physique and lethality to them, but without just being fresh-faced young super soldiers, because they don't age in theory. Like they do, just incredibly slowly in a universe where they're not likely to ever get to the point of dying of old age.
Exactly.
So it's a really interesting sculpting, feature with them. And actually, I think it'd be really interesting to see people taking these kits and using some of these heads on other Space Marines and other chapters. Like, I could imagine a really sort of grizzled Dark Angels captain, with a more aged face, and the hood and the cowl and everything, sort of thing, but with that more I've seen some stuff, kind of look.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Very excited for Woofers to come out. And again, their Crusade rules, I'm really hoping are going to be, even narratively, because the Space Wolves left the last edition, the past few editions, like, as big players and what's happening. So I'm excited to see where they are since Abaddon's back, and obviously we've had Angron and the Dark Angel and the Lion come back. Maybe we'll get Rust, maybe we won't. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Personally, I don't think we're going to see him this time around. I think perhaps the next time, and so you're talking probably 5 years out, sort of thing, minimum. next time.
I think, Tony, we don't need that negative energy in this podcast. I'll be perfectly honest with you, mate. There's simply no need.
So the only reason I say that is because I don't feel like there's a need for Russ yet. I think we're more likely to see someone like the Khan, Vulcan, even Dawn. I think is more likely to sort of come back soon than Russ, because, and I'm not saying that from a lore perspective, I'm saying that from a Games Workshop's production perspective. Like, I don't think the Space Wolves need Russ to inject life into them right now. Whereas, like, in a way, I do feel like Lionel Johnson coming back did add a lot to the Dark Angels.
Nobody likes them anyway, Tony. That's my issue with the Dark Angels. Silly First Legions sods.
But do you know what I mean? Like, whereas I could see them releasing, like, say, Vulcan, and then people have been like, "Oh my god, it's so great! We've got a new, Primarch who's suddenly bringing a lot of Salamander players to the table."
I'd argue Vulcan's got more of a response to combat than maybe the other Primarchs, purely because he was there at the end of the Siege. He was there during the Age of the Beast. We know he's floating about somewhere. The other guys are just kind of like MIA. There's not a massive hint of where they are. Whereas we know Vulcan is knocking about somewhere.
I do. I almost feel like Russ feels like he could be the capstone, sort of like character, the one who comes back and it's kind of like, we've now got all of them back sort of thing. Like, he's the last one to come back, and because he'll be so anticipated and so awaited for, and the rest of his brothers will already be back by that time. And in a funny way, I almost feel like that's what Russ would be waiting for. Like, I can, like, Gulliman and the Lion have both come back in a position where they think they're more or less the only survivors, at this point in time. So they're dealing with that weight of survivor's guilt sort of thing. In terms of the Primarchs and their brothers. Whereas I feel like Russ I don't feel like he'd vibe very well with that energy. I feel like him coming back and then going and finding his brothers would be more his energy, and sort of like going and reconnecting with them, which would be no good if most of them weren't about when he did come back.
Yeah. We shall see. We'll see what happens. We're due a new edition of 40k next year? If the 3-year cycle continues?
Possibly.
Which is crazy to think about.
On one last note then with the Space Wolves, one little thing that I just thought was just very interesting. Since 10th edition came along, and obviously they've revised Terminator armor. They didn't need to make this distinction between Primaris and non-Primaris wearers of Terminator armor.
Yeah.
So specifically, when they've now created these new models for the Terminator special characters like Logan and Arjak, I suppose I haven't read all the details in the article yet, so we don't know if it says whether or not any of them have technically crossed the Rubicon or not. Because in theory, Logan and Arjak might not have done. They're just wearing Terminator armor with new sculpts.
Because it's interesting, because again, from a product launching perspective, Primaris obviously was the big thing over the past few years. But then this edition, they've just not mentioned it. Oh, here's a new model. He's in this armor. There's been very little mention of the Rubicon Primaris. We'll see. Give me the book and I'll tell you.
Yeah, whereas like with Najal, he is now in Mark 10 armor. So you would think that means he's crossed the Rubicon.
Yeah.
Whereas, I say, like Arjak and Logan, maybe not, because they're just new sculpts in Terminator.
We shall see. Bjorn, that's all I want to know about. What's happening to old man Bjorn?
Well, yeah, I think that's just about everything that we're going to talk about tonight in terms of, like, latest news from Games Workshop and so on. But just to sort of round us out for tonight, actually, I was actually very pleased the other day. I received a email from one of our listeners, and so this was from Seth, and I wanted to read this out on the show because he asked a question about getting into the hobby of himself and some friends and Crusade and other stuff, and obviously I wanted to reply with him and give him my thoughts and thank him for getting in touch, as any of the listeners can do. You can email us at narrativewargamer@gmail.com, or reach out to us on any of the socials. You find me at Narrative Wargamer on basically anything and everything. Instagram, always a good place to DM me if you do want to have a chat about anything. But I thought, rather than just emailing, why don't we talk about it on the show and answer his question? And so yeah, thank you, Seth, for getting in touch. and I hope you find this helpful. So Seth emailed me to say, "Hi Tony, thank you so much for running this amazing podcast. Thank you, thank you very much for listening. I've been an amazing listener. Although I wasn't playing Warhammer until recently, I have loved your podcast for ages, since episode 23, which is a long-time listener, because Dan thankfully did some digging in the archives to find out what that actually was, and it was back from March 2021, an episode all about, was it 9th edition Open War Deck?
9th edition Open War Deck, yes. I remember it well.
Yeah.
Great deck, great product.
Great deck, great product. Missing from 10th edition, I feel. Could be something to
Indeed.
Perhaps go listen to. Yeah, if you want to go back and listen to that episode, you can hear about the Open War Deck and what it was, and why we would like to see a version of it back for 10th edition, or possibly 11th if we are that close to 11th edition. We'll see. Seth was writing, I'm new to the game, having only started about a month ago, yet I already have 2 500-point armies, Chaos Space Marines Black Legion, and Space Marines. I'm going to expand to 1,000 points and possibly get a Krieg army. I have made my own Renegade chapter based around the Blood Angels and would love to start playing narrative and crusade games with them. How would you advise getting into narrative play, as none of my friends are into the game? Some of them seem interested, yet I don't know how to get them into it. What would you suggest? Thank you so much, and keep up the good work, from Seth. So, yeah, as I say, thank you for
what a sweetheart. Thank you for that, mate. That's lovely.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a good question. So we talked about it pre-show just a little bit to get some sort of thoughts about how we'd answer this. And yeah, basically, I wanted to say that I think the first thing you're doing is absolutely the right thing, is that you've got more than one army. So if you've got some friends who are like on the fence or vaguely interested in getting into Warhammer in the first place, and they've maybe not got any stuff themselves, the best way to get them introduced to it is to be able to just put an army in front of them. So if you've got 2 armies, if you've got your Black Legion and your Space Marines, it's easy enough for you to be able to just get them to roll some dice, and play a game, and they don't have to commit to picking an army, buying their own stuff, building it, painting it, and then maybe not liking it. So that is absolutely the first best thing to have done, and I think that'll be a good first step. And then second to that is that you mentioned that you've got about 500 points of these 2 forces. Now, obviously, you don't specify in the email exactly what that's made up from, but if possibly they're from Combat Patrol box sets, that's great. If not, I'd advise Combat Patrol box sets being either the next sort of expansion of those forces, or if you do have a friend who, say, plays a little test game with you, really enjoys it and wants to get into it, if they pick up a Combat Patrol box and then perhaps you pick up one to expand one of your existing forces, you can play Combat Patrol, which is essentially this, introductory level format of the game. In fact, obviously, Chris, you were telling us about the Combat Patrol event you were running only, the other month. So
yep.
You said yourself, the majority of players in that event were actually either new to Combat Patrol or new to Warhammer entirely.
Yep, 100%. All it takes is someone to champion those events, make them accessible, don't do it to make money from them, don't limit anybody. If they've got what looks like a Combat Patrol, but maybe the proximity unit's cool, just make your opponent know. Just get there and roll dice.
Yeah. And when it comes to, say, picking a Combat Patrol, either for a friend or even if you were picking one in order to add to your collection to try and entice someone in, I think just going with Rule of Cool and the Combat Patrols really help with that, because you don't have to worry about putting together a coherent force or even a good force in terms of competitiveness. If you can just say to someone, go on the website, have a look through the armies, sit down with them, just get them to scroll through their phone in the pub with you. Do you know what I mean? And just have a look at the different factions. And whichever one that just looks the coolest to them, go get that Combat Patrol box for them. Or get them to go get it, and that can be their starting point. Because if they're already invested in the sense that they like the look of Death Guard, World Eaters, Krieg, whatever it is, then they're already going to be invested a bit in wanting to get their new toys on the table and play with them. As for playing narratively and playing with Crusade stuff, I would say the 2 best options there are either to pick up any of the 10th edition Crusade books that you can get hold of. I don't know how on the shelf available Crusade Enactment Gauntlet is currently. It is the most recent release, but it is also like a year old at this point. So I don't know if it's...
And we've got Armageddon coming soon, haven't we?
Yeah, it's not a year old, sorry. That was the last one was about a year ago. But Enactment Gauntlet is a couple of months old at this point. It's probably still on some shelves somewhere, I imagine. Or you can probably get it from the Games Workshop website, but I don't know about going and checking. However, yes, Chris, Crusade Armageddon is coming in the near future as well. But if you can pick up or find a copy of either Crusade Leviathan or Crusade Prior Nexus, they're also just as good. Notably, if you or a friend or whoever did want to pick up the Leviathan box set, if you can still get that again, I think there'll be some retailers that will have it, or maybe some local hobby stores that still have one or two on the shelf. That came with obviously like a core rules book, but it did also include Crusade missions and the sort of like Crusade rules from the Leviathan Crusade book in it. So if you did want to pick up Space Marines and Tyranids, either for yourself or to split with a friend, you get Crusade rules in there as well. And in regards to the Crusade rules themselves, if you're looking to get started, like I say, if you're new to playing it yourself or you're looking to introduce someone in, I wouldn't advise getting stuck straight into Crusade itself, as in like the army progression mechanics and the things specific to each faction. But what is perfect in there is the Crusade missions. Because rather than having to go and pick up the mission deck, that's currently the matched play way of playing the game, not only will those Crusade missions remain playable for you, like they're not going to age out after 6 months or 12 months or whatever like the mission deck will do. They're also a lot simpler. Like if you're not playing the layer of Crusade rules themselves, most of those Crusade missions are simply a primary objective. Here's some objectives, go hold them, or achieve a certain objective by the end of the game. You don't have to worry about layering in things like secondaries, secret missions, underdog bonuses, all these things that will be very overwhelming either to yourself or anyone else that you're trying to get into the game if you are new to it.
There's plenty of resources online. I found a couple of random mission generators that are really fun. Most of the rule sets you can find for missions based around Crusade or Combat Patrol are available online. The missions I did for my Combat Patrol event the other week, I'm going to put live on my Discord as of Thursday, as well as the unique rules for the tile locations on there. They are designed for Combat Patrol and for new players, so there's no reason they couldn't work for early Crusade games. Take those, play with them, be inspired, think about, oh cool, what about if we tried this mechanic, or what if we reduce the number of objectives and change the deployment zones? And then it becomes, what can you do to enjoy the game, or what can you do to make the game more applicable to your circumstances? Because at the end of the day, one of the first games of Warhammer I played was on a friend's landing on top of the stairs on carpet with dice and a Coke can and some terrain. We all start there, and classic, so those are some of the funnest stuff. Warhammer Floor T1000 or Floor TK as we call it. And those will be some of the best memories you've got getting started in the hobby. And then you play the missions, you design your own, and then you might get the confidence to start an event yourself and say, guys, let's all come together and play Combat Patrol, or do a beginning Crusade League, or just a 40k evening to get people involved and coming and playing the games. There are people all over. There's several people in my street who probably play this game, but don't play with anybody because they either don't want to, which is fine, or they don't know they're there. So what can we do? Build a community, get people involved, roll dice, and make stupid gun noises with toy soldiers.
Yeah.
I think it probably worth noting that Combat Patrol, excellent, of course, but it has the fixed rosters. But there's no reason why you couldn't just use those missions with a regular 500-point army, right? It would work just as well.
Me and my twin have done that, and they've been absolutely fine. No issues whatsoever.
Yeah, and then just as for finding, players and getting into the game yourself, even if it isn't with, say, a current group of friend circle that you do have, if you start searching online for game clubs like in your local area, like if you just try finding almost search for Warhammer events probably in your area, even if it's like competitive events, almost if you start looking for like Googling for Warhammer events in your area, what you'll probably find is that those events are then run by some sort of either club or other like local wargaming organization. So you don't necessarily have to sign up to go to their GTs or RTs or whatever, but they'll probably either have a Discord server or a Facebook group, or let's say a local club night will be a great way to find people local to you who are playing the game. And even if you do find them because they're advertising for, like I say, their upcoming GT or whatever, you might then just find where they hold their club night, and then you might be able to start going down, and then you might find players who go to that club who aren't the GT attending players. Like there's plenty of opportunities and places to find them. I mean, say I recently moved to Scotland in the last year, and in all honesty, the scene up here is way more active than the particular area of Yorkshire that I was in before. Like there's so many more clubs and just players up here than I expected there to be, and I found them through sort of sourcing Facebook groups, Discord servers, everything based on, let's say, these clubs and events. There's about 3 distinct club groups that run things in this area, and now I'm starting to sort of have regular games with different people from different circles, all in the sort of, you know, within up to a 40-minute drive from where I am, sort of thing, you know. So yeah, that's why I would advise. But specifically, if you've got friends who are interested in playing, that obviously you already hang out with, the best thing you can do is just put them in a situation where all they have to do is roll dice. If you can get, you know, a board set up, minis in front of them, and, you know, just the basic outline of a mission, like, you know, and I always say the simplest mission in the game you can possibly ever do is whoever has a model closest to the center of the table at the end of the game wins. That's a great intro mission, you know, regardless of what armies you're playing or what models you've got. Let's just play 5 turns. Whoever is closest to the center at end of turn 5 wins. There you go. And all they've had to learn to do then is roll dice and the basic interactions of moving and fighting with, you know, units.
Once you get the wound table through your head, you're away. That's easy. As someone who's taught Warhammer for many years and did it professionally, once you get past the wound table, you're away. I will say, depending on the age of Seth, we don't know, there might be a young adult or a young listener maybe. There is a lot to be said about a local Warhammer store. If you've got one, pop in, say hello. Their mission is to get people involved in the hobby. If you take a friend with you and ask for an intro game, they will give you one. They will give you a model to paint and keep, and they will give you all the advice in the world. If you then support that store, amazing. Most Warhammer stores aren't doing gaming in store anymore. The exception to that, I believe, is in fact Aberdeen, who have one of the biggest gaming Warhammer stores I've ever seen, with the most active scene I've seen anywhere outside of Warhammer World. Unbelievable. But what they will do is they will point you to local clubs and local stores who do host regular gaming nights. And again, their mission is to grow the scene in their city, so it's worth popping in and saying hello. And no one will get anyone more excited for a game of Warhammer than your local Warhammer staff. That is their job.
Yeah, absolutely true. And then finally, the last little plug for myself is that, of course, you can also go join the Narrative Wargamer Patreon, because there is also a free monthly mission that goes up on there every month now for patrons. So yeah, there's a narrative mission that I have, like, you know, put together, and there's optional environment rules as well. So obviously a ton of fun stuff, as the kind of thing we've always talked about on this show. You know, if you've been listening since 2021, then you probably know the sort of things we talk about. So yeah, like I said, that is up there, and that goes for all our listeners. As I say, it's something that I'm really wanting to, you know, raise awareness of now, that there is something really tangible for Flash Git tier patrons who now get a free monthly mission to play. And I'd love to start seeing and hearing people's feedback on them. You know, play one mission once a month. There's a 2 or 3 of them already up there now, and the next one for May will be dropping very soon. And then I'll have to do the next 3 months ones and get them ready for posting. But yeah. So yeah, go check out the Narrative Wargamer Patreon. There are other bonuses and benefits as well, as, you know, some behind the scenes stuff, extra videos, some early access to certain videos, and a whole bunch of things. But I do think one of the big, real sort of selling points now is this free monthly mission for Flash Git tier patrons. So yeah, I'd love to see and hear more people getting a chance to play that. And then yeah, as I say, the main thing really is just listening. So thank you, Seth, for sending that in. Hopefully we'll have, we're open to more questions and emails from listeners. If you have any questions about anything relating to the hobby, new releases, ways to play, getting people in, painting, say me and Chris do a lot of painting professionally now. So we've got some points of reference for all that as well. And yeah, I'd love to hear from the listeners more. So send emails in, send questions in, send conversation topics in. We'll read them all, probably consider them all, and probably talk about them on the show. Basically, final plugs then for everything tonight is otherwise, as always, they'll be in the description below, where places you can find us all on our various Instagrams and accounts and so on. We've mentioned throughout the show that we'll include any updates relating to events that we run. You can also support the show by using our affiliate links below, so you can go to Element Games. If you do buy anything from them, we get a little kickback. It doesn't cost you anything. Obviously on YouTube, do like and subscribe. We are starting to get this out regularly now on YouTube, so we're trying to build our followers on there, and hopefully the channel will start growing from there. I'm aiming to try and put out one video every week now, even if it is sometimes longer ones, sometimes shorter ones. The aim is the podcast will be sort of like every other week, and then every other week to that will be something different. It could be anything, any week, just anything that I fancy doing.
I saw your video answering the question, "Are Space Marines the good guys?"
Yeah, that was a fun little skit series to do. I'm hoping to do a couple more of a few other different factions and really just cast that prism of the 40k lore in a different light, where it might not always be the anticipated answer to some questions.
I think it was, in fairness, the anticipated answer to that question. No.
But yeah, I think that's about everything for now. So yeah, thank you again very much to both Chris and Dan for joining me tonight.
No problem.
No stress, dude. Thank you for having us.
And yeah, I think we've got some interesting episodes planned coming up for the podcast in the near future. So once we get them nailed down, got a few topic ideas and conversations to talk about, and obviously that's all alongside whatever news and new releases we get from Games Workshop that create talking points like tonight. I wasn't expecting to come on tonight and talk about Space Wolves again, but then we did because there was new Space Wolves to talk about, and yeah, they're pretty cool. So yeah, looking forward to Crusade Armageddon in the near future, and honestly even the new mission pack, because I do think that, as we mentioned last episode, there's going to be some interesting stuff for us to talk about on there. And Dan, will have you back on in the future once you've had a chance to play a few games in your local campaign using the tactical reinforcement rules.
It'd be interesting.
Cool. Right, so yeah, I think that's everything for tonight, guys. So once again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. I hope you do enjoy what we do here on the podcast, and you do leave us comments, reviews, likes, subscribes, all those good things. I always love hearing from the listeners and engaging with you guys. So yeah. Until next time, guys, this has been the Narrative Wargamer Podcast, helping you to discover more ways to play 40k.